Before I greet you, I want to warn you that this is going to be an experiment. So I don't know, I have no idea how this is going to go. So I want to begin with a question, and I would appreciate someone volunteering to answer. How would you define unrealistic goal? How would you define unrealistic goal? And along with that, while you think about it, what are the signature warning signs along with it, if there are any? What is an unrealistic goal? Anyone who would like to volunteer in interacting?
In my mind, an unrealistic goal is one that's impossible for you to achieve. And the warning signs might be hard to see. They usually become more apparent over time for a lot of things, where you start to feel like you're just kind of getting nowhere, hitting your head against the wall repeatedly. Just not making any progress. And then I think it comes to mind that you don't have all the conditions. That sometimes you figure it out along the way.
And are there any feelings or experiences associated with that?
Maybe the first feeling, before you know it's impossible, you could have many feelings. You might be elated thinking something was possible. There's a lot of possible feelings. You might be dreading if something is possible. Depends on what you're shooting for. But I think oftentimes people with unrealistic goals are going for something pleasant, so they might have a lot of pleasant feeling, thinking something's going to happen, a lot of anticipation, those kind of things. But along the way comes a lot of maybe disappointment, disenchantment, anger, frustration, irritation. Finally, you figure out you're suffering and you start to look into it.
And how would you differentiate our goal of enlightenment from, would you qualify it as an unrealistic goal?
I think that to actually answer that question, you would have to probably, to know with certainty, you would probably have to have some realizations. But that said, we have the ability to use our logic. So by studying, then that's the question you have to ask yourself, And so when you see that you can make progress in small ways, like there's a lot of teachings that help you in this regard. The Sakyas have some 4 points that they talk about, where you start on your experience, and then it helps you to have faith that you need in the teachers, the teachings, the Dharma, and all that.
Okay, so how you're responding to this is, in a nutshell, saying that yes, having a goal of enlightenment is not an unrealistic goal.
That would depend on the person's background.
I see. Okay, so...
No, I'm not saying that, but for somebody to say that was a realistic goal or unrealistic goal would depend on that individual's understanding of what it is and the road getting there. And so I think some people would find it to be completely outrageously impossible. And other people would, especially people farther along the path, would say, well, this is doable.
So that very much brings home the idea that realistic goal, unrealistic goal, including everything else, is a relative thing. So then there's no such thing as this is unrealistic goal. Irrespective of a person, so there's no possibility of singling out one statement that such a goal is unrealistic across the board.
I think that pervades.
Okay, so then another question before I proceed on. So for something to be unrealistic goal, doesn't it have to have a time factor associated with it? Does it have to be? Okay. So, so with these things, that it has to have a time factor associated with it, or that it doesn't have to be, but it is relative to individual. Thus, for some of us, the goal of from what I hear you saying, is that for some of us as monastics, even having heard about Buddha nature and whatnot, is the goal of enlightenment realistic, and for some, and unrealistic some.
Yes, Srila, to answer your question, I would like to say that attaining awakening is possible, but I want to add this, it's not possible overnight. So, and then I know that if now I gain direct realization of impermanence, suffering, and selflessness, then it's possible. I'm on the path. And of course, there are many, many supportive and favorable conditions to make that happen. Studying, meditation, reflection, and a lot of things. And of course, one of them is ethics. So I think it's realistic. Yeah.
Realistic across the board or relative to people?
I cannot say, I think it's possible for everyone. Yeah, it's not only monastic, but of course monastic has higher probability because we devote our time and effort and energy. And when we say, hey, but I have that intention in my mind, a strong will to say, hey, this is my goal. And to do that, I have what I should I study, I practice, meditate, reflect, and there are many, many other things. And
Yes.
one of them is not to deceive myself. Deceive myself about my spiritual growth and development. To see where I am at, so I don't have that unrealistic goal and get disappointed and discouraged and give up. So, and it also depends on my delusion and ignorance. Why should I set that goal for overnight?
Okay, so thank you so very much for the volunteers in filling in some of the time, my BBC. So that was the trick behind it. Well, not exactly. But from what I hear is that yes, on the whole, having a goal of enlightenment is realistic, but at the same time it is more preferably so based on conditions that we gather around us. So yes, it very clearly sets the course in front of us that to set a goal of enlightenment, we not only have to be content with our having Buddha nature, in the first place to believe that we have a Buddha nature, that is always given from our belief, but at the same time, there's this need of shoring up with all of our means in making it realistic, and then make it more and more realistic as we proceed along. So based on that, I want to make ourselves, feel ourselves, particularly myself, affirmed in this goal of enlightenment, but at the same time be aware of the need of really making it firmer and firmer and firmer as I go along, be that by meditating, by studying, by reasoning, by discussion, all of those, gathering the tools around making it a realistic goal. And thus, some could have a realistic goal with regard to the goal of enlightenment, feeling that, yes, I will attain enlightenment in this lifetime, in one short lifetime of a degenerate age. I see some heads. Okay, then what about, if that's an unrealistic goal, then what about 3 times in a month that we say, may I quickly attain full enlightenment? Is this not setting a goal that we are affirming? Yes. By the way, when we say quickly, that is in juxtaposition to the general sutra perspective of taking three countless great eons. Compared to that, the short will be 16 lifetimes, one lifetime in a degenerate age. And even shorter than that, 12 years within that, or even shorter than that, 3 years, 3 months. In some cases, Venerable Pendela, I want to alert you to some statements that I have found that it could be possible, provided you have all the paraphernalia, it could be possible in one sitting. You go into the meditation, ordinary being, come out fully awakened. All you do is just maintain the clear-light mind that you have attained there and sustain it, come out with that sustained active, and then say on it, you're Buddha. So, so I very much like Venerable Tarpas' response to this, that it is kind of an aspiration for us to have, to think not just that the goal of enlightenment is possible and it might take even 3 countless great eons, but provided it is possible and one can shore up the practices and whatnot, then it might be even possible for within a shorter period, and one should keep that option open. And that's the reason why in our Lama Chuba, in our Guru Puja prayer, there is this aspiration where it says, to benefit all mother sentient beings, I shall quickly in this very life become a primordial Buddha Guru Idam. And here, quickly in this very lifetime, it's not so clear whether the first quickly and the second quickly refers to any different time frame, but it could be 16 lifetimes that is quicker than the usual 3 countless great eons. And then compared with 16 lifetimes, even 1 lifetime in this short period, short degenerate life is quicker. But within that, if we put the first quicker to refer to 1 lifetime, then the second quick will be 3 months, 3 years, 3 months. But this aspiration that we make is under the caption called special bodhicitta. And this special bodhicitta, although we translate it as special bodhicitta, which is also fine, but in a way it is an extraordinary bodhicitta, which will be only realistic and practical to a higher scope bodhisattva with great courage, who he or she sees within her or his power or ability that he could pull it off. And thus, for us who are still aspiring, one could approach this that I have heard from His Holiness Dalai Lama refer to as a means of developing confidence in the Dharma, in the practice, provided one could pull up the required abilities, required stamina, particularly rooted in a very strong foundation of Vinaya practice, plus the cultivation of bodhicitta and the understanding on the right track on the selfless nature of things, emptiness nature of things, then yes, the plus when we bring in the Vajrayana practices of integrating or cultivating the union of not just the clear light nature and emptiness, but of what we call the consummate union of the true truths, consummate union of the clear light nature, clear light mind, as understanding emptiness on the one hand, conjoined with or paired with the illusory body, making a unique culminating union of the true truths, then yes, such a realization of goal within a short period is possible. So one way of aspiring is not just aspiring for the sake of feeling moved and concerned about the well-being of others, but at the same time making it substantiated by one's own understanding, and not just that, but more particularly one's practices. So, and then in this regard, there are so many things that we need to, that we may be expected to work on. One is a very clearer and clearer overview of the path that leads to enlightenment, from where one stands to the fullest state of awakening, kind of have a more and more well-furnished, as we go with time, more and more well-furnished overview or a roadmap to enlightenment, but at the same time being realistic of where one stands, and thus making sure that the practice factors, components at that stage are well attended to. And that will include really developing a firm sense of renunciation, and that will include very firm faith in unquestioned, unwavering faith and trust, and trust in the law of karma. That means in the possibility, in the fact of life after and life before. And based on that, there are certain other factors that need to be attended to. So I'm using this as a means of affirming and stabilizing my own faith, not just in the Dharma, but particularly of the Mahayana practice, where this wonderful practice of putting others before oneself in the face of self-centeredness, which really stands at the core of all of our unnecessary problems. Thus, this antidote is presented in the Mahayana practice. But to be able to make the most of that practice is to be aware that to be aware to one's own current standing, and at the same time develop this far-sighted view with a clearer and a clearer idea of what does it take to reach from here to there, and what it is that one currently needs to shore up and develop. So with this, I want to reassure myself that yes, the goal of enlightenment is not just realistic, but the possibility of even attaining it, realizing it within a shorter period of time without having to wait for 3 countless great eons is possible. By the way, 3 countless eons is not long. It's not long compared with what we have already spent time in samsara. Looking back in samsara, it goes beginningless, which is there is an eternity that we have that we have lived, and without getting anywhere, it has been just like chasing the tail, getting nowhere. Whereas now we have found a path, and the surest way to catapult us to the aspired goal is bodhicitta. But for that to be stabilized, affirmed, there are many components that needs to be attended to, and I remind myself to attend to those and firmly establish the foundation. Thereby, on the riding horse of bodhicitta, I could ride with joy from to full awakening, and I encourage you all to also do so.